It's now my immense pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Susan Hiller. It's not the first time Susan participated in the marathon. She's done an unforgettable presentation in our MAP marathon, and she will today actually present a film which we will afterwards discuss. It's called The Last Silent Movie. Her work has often drawn upon sources as diverse as dreams, postcards, Punch and Judy shows, horror movies, UFO sightings, and narratives of near-death experience. The topic of extinction came up in the very first conversation we had many years ago, and I'm really super happy that Susan agreed to be here with us and that we can show the film, The Last Silent Movie. Susan has so many exhibitions right now, I cannot mention them all. She mentioned 27 exhibitions in 2014 only, so I'm just going to mention the most recent one, which is a new film she made for the Mirror City exhibition at the Hayward, which just started. It's a film called Resounding. And please join me now in giving a very warm welcome to Susan Hiller and her film, The Last Silent Movie. Thank you so very much to Susan. We have a quick set change now. And please give a very warm welcome to Susan Hiller. Susan, thank you again very much. It's wonderful that we can show this film, because when we started to talk with Gustav Metzger about this topic and started to address the pavilion, it was actually one of the first artworks we evoked, and talking not only about extinction of species, but extinction of languages. And I wanted to start by asking you what it is in particular about the extinction of language that draws you, and if you can tell us a little bit what triggered The Last Silent Movie.
Well, I'll try to give a brief answer to that. It occurred to me that the topic of extinction comes up in the popular press and on television and so forth quite a lot. And among the things that are said to be becoming extinct, insects, flowers, so forth, no one talks about groups of people who are becoming extinct. And that's very ironic, because when there are articles about language extinction, they're talking often about what we lose when we lose a language. And what we lose is an entire worldview, a picture of reality that's different from the way our language constructs reality. But no one ever says, why have we lost these languages? They don't talk about the people, they talk about the language. And of course, there are many reasons why languages disappear, and some languages don't disappear. For example, Latin didn't really disappear, it turned into other languages. But the small languages are disappearing rapidly. And you'll notice, if you had a chance to really look at the titles at the end, that a lot of the voices on this film are the voices of the very last people who spoke a language. And I could have gone on adding to it and adding to it and adding to it, but of course I stopped it at the point when I had finished my research. That's one thing that I feel is hidden by the concern for the extinction of language. It's what happens to the people who are speaking the language. And the second thing is that when anthropologists and linguists and so forth do record languages, and there's an awful lot of work going on now in this kind of last-ditch attempt to preserve some of the languages, then the archives are not made public. So the languages disappear twice, which struck me as strange. You have to get special permissions to enter the archives where most of these languages are kept.
So it's very much connected actually to what Eric Hobsbawm, in our last conversation we had when we prepared the memory marathon, called a protest, an urgent protest against forgetting. I was very curious because, I mean, what you've all just seen is actually a short excerpt of a very epic film, which is 220 minutes. So I was curious if you can tell us a little bit more about the process of collecting all these extraordinary source materials, how you found them, how you found all of these extinct and endangered languages, and then also more importantly, when and how you decided to stop, because as you say, it could potentially be infinite.
I stopped because I was working on a project for a particular exhibition, and that was the Berlin Biennale of a few years ago, so I stopped. But to find these languages, it isn't very difficult. You go online and you can find the list of languages that are becoming extinct and lists of extinct languages. The problem is getting the opportunity, finding a way to actually listen to the voices of the people rather than getting a text transcription or something of the sort. And I've done a lot of other work with human voices. The piece I have on at the Hayward at the moment uses human voices, for example. I'm very interested in the way that voice is body. Voice carries the body of the person. There are no images because I think you can feel an empathy with the person through the voice that would be denied through a distanced representation via photography or something of the sort. Okay, which is more of a controlling representation of the person. What was I supposed to say?
No, it's a great answer, but I'm curious to know more about the research, how you found all of these extinct and endangered languages, and how did the research work?
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, artist research is a curious phenomenon. It's a kind of intuitive, random way of working that in the end is productive. I don't think I had a particular method. I started looking online, I started reading books, newspaper articles, and when I started that, discussing it with people because I was shocked by the way the archives were kept from public view. And then people began bringing me newspaper articles about this language, that language, et cetera, and it's quite remarkable, really. I think I really stopped when I felt that I had choreographed something that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, because it ends with a statement of intent. Now we shall all speak Comanche forever, which is signifying the interest in the remnants of what were once larger groups of people to revitalize their cultures and their language and to resist extinction through relearning and teaching their language. So I felt that was a good way to end, and I felt a good way to begin was with a remarkable speech, which in fact was only found, this is what I'm saying about archives, they're curious. The first man who speaks is speaking an African click language, and he was actually recorded in 1937 on a wax cylinder. And he was asked by, I believe, an anthropologist to make a sort of example, to talk in a way that would be useful for a conference of linguists, which was being held in Belgium. So he was fully aware that he had an opportunity to speak to those people who were at that time, as he sort of sneaks in, killing and punishing these people for speaking their language. So he manages to reference that, and he also makes what I think is a very eloquent plea for empathy. He said, "You don't know my language, I don't know your language, but please pay attention because in this country we are human beings and we have a wonderful language." And he says that. Well, then what happened to the cylinder, this wax cylinder, was that it was put into an archive in a university, and it was there for about 50 years. Someone just found it fairly recently. And so I felt that having found a reference to it and having got permission to use it, it was absolutely essential to make it into a work that would have a broader public, that wouldn't be limited in a cupboard in some university to just a few people.
And one thing actually in relation to extinction which came to my mind, watching your wonderful film, is a conversation we had with Tacita Dean a few weeks ago, because Tacita has produced a poster for the occasion of the marathon. And the poster is called SaveFilm.org, where she basically talks about her campaign for the saving not only of languages, but the language of film. And looking at the film, I was thinking about the possible extinction of film. I was kind of wondering, what's your opinion on the potential extinction of this medium, and if you agree with Tacita?
Really? Do I have to expose my view to everybody? I don't think it's as nearly as important as the extinction of people. I really don't. And I think that, yeah, that's what I think. Okay.
But that is a great, great conclusion. Susan, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.